It was during those long, strange weeks of the lockdown of the coronavirus in 2020 that I began to look at things slightly differently. I'd grown up reading science fiction books that talked about parallel worlds to our own, different universes where things were slightly different. But I'd no experience of going into those places myself. Until that time, the world I experienced around me was persistently hot, sunny. People that were told to distance were going out and walking around every day, out of the town and into the countryside, and paths which had been barely trodden by anybody for years were suddenly flattened and the soil dry and dusty, compressed down under the weight of many footprints. I have a greenhouse which, in those hot weeks, was finding it hard to keep it watered. There's a gutter and a tank that catches the water from the gutter, but it was nearly empty. But one day I somehow seemed to drift into a different world where I was me, but not me. In this world during the COVID time, rather than being persistently hot and dry, it was drizzling and damp and persistently grey skies. In this other slightly different place, the tank in the greenhouse was constantly dripping with water, running down the windows, running down the panes, dripping into the gutter and dripping slowly into the tank. I didn't know how I'd got to this place, this slightly different world and this slightly different me. Just this weird feeling that I wasn't myself and that things had gone strange. I'd spoken to my friends and my family about it. They said I was in a state of grieving for my mum who died during this time, but I knew that somehow I'd slipped through into a slightly different reality. There were things here to remind me of who I was, like Mouse Dog peeping out from behind the licorice plant. But there was something different to how Mouse Dog looked, not quite the same as how I'd made him. I didn't recognise this creature at all, although perhaps she was trying to explain to me who she was. I noticed this carving of Lilith, the Queen of the Night, next to her. Something that never appeared in my own world. And there was a stinging nettle growing out of the wall or from the back of the greenhouse, in amongst the pots and pot plants, next to this strangely carved creature. My own greenhouse was immaculate. I had a little dustpan and brush there to keep the floor swept and keep everything tidy, whereas everything here seemed to have cobwebs and dust. Some of the webs were old, some of them still seemed to be inhabited by the creatures that had made them. I began to feel my way into the life I'd lived and the people around me that had led to me being in this greenhouse. In the world I remember as my own, I concentrate on growing vegetables and sometimes medicines, herbs for medicines. But here, in the greenhouse, there are a number of seedlings, and when I looked at the label, they were called Cosmos. And Cosmos were the favourite flowers of my mother for the last few years. So in this world, perhaps I was growing flowers for my mum. Here also were seedlings of Datura, a strange toxic, druggy member of the deadly nightshade family. Maybe it's fumes, maybe its mere presence had transported me from one world to another. I found a bright, shiny, seemingly brand new sixpence. That's 6 old pence, pre-decimal money, dated 1960. The year I was born, so maybe the weird, slightly different version of me that perhaps I'd become was born in the same year. I was becoming more clear and at the same time increasingly confused. I felt like I'd been woven into a web, like that character in Lord of the Rings that gets attacked by a giant spider and wrapped up, cocooned. Was something going to eat me? The grey sky, the quiet air, the sounds of the birds seemed to have been dampened. My own greenhouse, as I'd said, was tidy and clean. Here and amongst the cobwebs there were gaps in the brickwork, like where the spider lived, and also perhaps the spider lived in this hole. There were small items left in there. This looked like a skull of a badger. Or was it a fox? Perhaps whoever had made this place, or had kept it up, had kept it as some sort of shrine or a church or a place of devotional ceremony. But if so, why so many cobwebs? Why did it seem so lived in, so used, and yet somehow so neglected? I had a memory of dreaming. In my dream I was being challenged. Somebody showed me a plant which seemed to have the features of many different plants, and the challenge was for me to say precisely what sort of plant it was. And then I was asked a direct question. Was this a dandelion or was this parsley? It looked like neither. It had nothing to do with either of those plants. But here, in this greenhouse, there was parsley growing. There was some sort of conversation going on between my dream and my waking self. With the hot weather of that long spring, my tomatoes had grown furiously, huge. But here, in this place, they still seem to be very small, even dwarfed by the parsley and the carrot plants that were growing in front of them. I saw a label in front of one and it said, legend. I'd fallen into a myth, but I was trying to work out what was the real place. I remembered when I was younger, at one point, I tried to remember my dreams and I wrote them down every morning and paid them lots of attention. I didn't know what they meant, but I just thought I should give them some sort of focus of attention for a while. But gradually, each night, my dreams would continue from where they'd left off the previous night. I began to get scared. My dreaming world was as real as my waking world. When my fear got big, suddenly it just stopped. I maybe carried on dreaming, but I didn't remember them, and my dreams didn't run one into another. Near the door of the greenhouse, there was a huge plant with big, big inflorescences of flowers. I didn't know what it was. There was some name nagging at my memory. I think I used to know about plants. I think I used to know what this was. It looked like a giant mint. I remembered seeing a film made by the people that did The Mighty Bosch, where all the sets, which were supposedly different places around Europe, were just made out of junk from inside one of the rooms that was also shown in the film. And this place, this greenhouse, felt like that. Felt like it was patched together with sticky tape. There were cracked window panes and places where the glass was missing entirely. Bits of board and stuff put in their place, held in with what looked like aluminium tape. It's exciting sometimes to just find yourself awaking from a daydream in the middle of a day and finding yourself in a strange and mysterious place. I saw something that I didn't remember having seen before. There, near the door, was a model. I don't know what you call these things. Something somebody had made. A representation of a person. Rather old and, like everything else in this place, a bit covered in dust and cobwebs. I wondered, who was this character? The first name that came to my mind was Sylve, an abbreviation of Sylvia, somebody that I knew from my childhood. And then it changed to Sylviana, which made me think of trees, but it sounded like a pretentious name for a character that looked so sort of down to earth. I don't know your name, I said. But she was just an inert statue or sculpture or model. She didn't reply. But something about her presence, what was she holding? It looked like a butterfly net or a giant magnifying glass. Something to be able to see things more clearly. She looked old and young at the same time. Her hair, in a bunch sticking out to one side, looked like a bunch of tangled roots. Maybe it was a bunch of tangled roots that had been used to construct her. She looked young and old, and somehow maybe everlasting. She said something to me about life going on, maybe in different places. I don't know, I was struggling to make sense of it. Tucked behind the leaf of the giant mint-like plant, a little pile of silvery discs. I had a vague memory of them. What would they be? CVDs, something like that. Some things used to store music or videos. Something used to play music. And now no longer working, no longer necessary. Somehow I felt like I'd been here before. I remember saying to a friend, or did I dream this? Or was I making it up now as I think it now? That time, life is sometimes like going round in a circle, but that's only when viewed from above, and if you view it from the side, maybe you're going round and round a coil. So you hit the same places, but your perspective's slightly different because each time you come round the coil, you're slightly above or below where you were before, so things are almost the same, but seen from a different perspective. Another hole in the bricks. No, that first skull must have been a fox. This is definitely a badger. I can tell by the ridge on the top. How do I know that? Where do I remember that from? I seem to know so much, and yet I don't remember anything. I feel like I know nothing. I seem to remember other places beyond the confines of this greenhouse. I can see plants, nettles and trees outside. And yet, it's so far from one end of this big brick and glass room to the other end. And there seem to be so many details to explore. I wonder how many weeks or months I can spend in here. I felt increasingly confused. Was I talking about now or was I talking about the past? And where did I live and who was I? I looked again at Sylvia or whatever she was called, and she looked slightly grim from this angle, like she was admonishing me for taking things too seriously. Are you looking for a moral or a meaning or a kind of punchline to the story, she said. Isn't this more like one of those Native American stories where there isn't any punchline, there isn't any funny thing to laugh at the end, and there isn't any moral? It just sort of fizzles out. There was a seed tray with a label in it. If there was no label, I wouldn't have known what it was, but the label said foxglove. And as I looked at it and looked at the soil and looked at the tiny little plants, I was simultaneously also able to see the plants and the flowers that they would grow into. I was inside the greenhouse, but somehow I could see what it looked like from outside at the same time. Everything is big and everything is small at the same time. But maybe things do have neat and tidy endings. I found the dustpan and found myself in the version of the greenhouse with which I'm more familiar.